Good evening. Thank you to the Board of Education for the opportunity for all of us to present the curriculum and instruction budget for the 25-26 school year. Before I start, I just want to give a big thank you to the entire admin team, the department chairs, the directors, the principals, the assistant principals, who all worked very hard in assembling the curriculum and instruction budget this year. A big thank you also to the business office, Patrick and his team, because there have been many visits to the business office checking in on expenditure reports and positions and things like that, and so they've been a true asset. And finally, a thank you to the CNI office team. It's been a very busy set of weeks trying to get all of the various building and department presentations consolidated into the presentation and get everybody prepared. So just a big thank you to everybody. Just an overview of the presentation. I'm going to start with some general budget highlights to hopefully kind of expedite the process a little bit in terms of consistent themes that you'll see across all the various budgets. You'll hear from each of the building principals as well as our athletics and PE and special education departments regarding their budgets. Finally, at the end, I will kind of tie it all together of the various budgets that you're going to hear, as well as any of the other district-wide budget lines that all comprise the curriculum and instruction budget. Just a quick reminder that this budget presentation is as of March 5th, 2025. The reason why I say that is because we still have about a month worth of budget development to go before Dr. Norman presents his final budget to the Board of Education. You may have noticed that the original draft presentation that I put up on Friday, and even what's in front of you today, has changed slightly because we had 2 seats that were budgeted for in the special education department that had to be removed because students were going into different placements. So this is a very, very, very fluid process. So what you're hearing right now is on March 5th. Things continue to be examined and looked into as we prepare the final budget for Dr. Norman to present next month. So just some quick highlights. First and foremost, the budget you're about to hear is designed to ensure that we maintain all expenses for all of our programs within the school district. Our goal, we are strong believers in the programs that we provide for our students, and we want to make sure that the budget reflects our ability to be able to continue to maintain all of those excellent programs. In addition to that, you're going to hear from each of the building principals at the elementary level. We have a placeholder for some updates to our Into Reading program. They have a new version coming out with some updates that are going to be included in the ELA textbook lines across the elementary level, as well as Envision Math. Each of the 5 elementary buildings have a shift in their Envision Math textbook line because previously those budgets were out of a district-wide line and they've been moved into each of the buildings' lines. So rather than having each of the buildings talk to you about, and my math line is going up, and my math line is going up, those are consistent themes that you'll see across all the buildings. We increased our field trip budget line from a $14 per student multiplier to an $18 per student multiplier, so that's a budget line that is increasing across the board. Again, rather than each of the building principals presenting on that's a theme that's across the school district. And later on, you're going to hear me speak about our continued investment in career and technical education programs and our special education budget. One quick question that I was asked that I wanted to share with the board. I was asked about where our universal pre-K program exists within this budget. Our universal pre-K program exists separately from this budget because a good portion of that program is paid for out of state aid funds, and there's actually an inter-fund transfer line that's within the general fund where the state aid monies gets deposited into, and that's not considered a curriculum and instruction budget line, so that does not appear in this budget. However, Mrs. Terlecki, when she presents Sapphire, there is a slight piece of the Sapphire budget because there are 3 teachers at Sapphire who some of the supply money that is within your building goes to that program. But all of the other materials that Mrs. Terlecki presents on focuses exclusively on K-1 students within her building and not the UPK program. With that, we're going to start off with Christine Arlt, the principal at Smith Clove.
Good evening. On behalf of our Smith Clove community, I thank you for this opportunity to present our proposed budget for the 25-26 school year for your consideration. As Mrs. Markevich says it best, we serve 477 beautifully diverse students at Smith Clove Elementary, and this proposed budget reflects costs to maintain the excellent programs in place for student learning. In addition to the increases in lines presented by Dr. Hassler, the one additional increase that we have is in the line of social studies, and that increase is due to the increased costs for the resources to support student learning. As you can see by the line-to-line budget, you'll see the increases to the principals line, the ELA, math, and social studies lines as presented. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to present Smith Clove's proposed budget.
The principal line across each of the buildings is where the field trip portion of the budget is included that I mentioned before, so that's what that line increase is referring to. Up next is Mrs. Terlecki for Sapphire.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Our current enrollment is 281 students, and that's the number that I used to build this budget. We do have 3 UPK classes in Sapphire, and we are limited to 18 students per class. So we actually have a total of 335 students, but the budget that you see is really for our 281. On the numbers, as Dr. Hassler said, under general education, that's where we use the money for supplies for teachers, and we have 3 UPK teachers, and we do give them the money from that line for folders and cotton balls and construction paper and all the things that the little people need. And language arts, as Dr. Hassler said, is for interreading. Perhaps we will increase on that. And the math is the additional practice books. We call that homework back in my day, but they're additional practice books, so we're paying for that. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory.
Awesome.
Any questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Up next, we're going to invite our 2-5 principals to come on up. Thank you. And up next is Dr. Morales for our Pine Tree budget.
Good evening. On behalf of Pine Tree, Mr. Martin and I would like to thank the members of the Cabinet and Board of Ed for the opportunity to share our budget. We are currently at 743 students, and as discussed previously, you'll see increases in our principal, math, and English language arts line. The other increase to note is an increase in our music line, which is for additional instruments for our students.
Great. Up next is Mr. Davis at North Main.
Good evening. On behalf of Mrs. Greenblatt and the entire North Main community, our 567 students, would love for you to take and consider our budget. The only increase to our budget is basically an increase in the furniture line for replacing some unsafe chairs in the 4th and 5th grade. Our PE line went up a little bit, and that's just for some additional equipment for our PE classes. Thank you.
Do we have a timeline on the chairs?
Good question. I don't know. Is there a holdback on furniture?
Well,
I mean,
we're talking about for next year.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as the budget is, presuming the budget is passed, approved by the community, we could generate a purchase order for the 25-26 year, send that to the vendor, so it could happen as quickly as early July, I would say.
Summertime. With the goal of obviously having this
This
in place for
July,
September.
right? This-
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes. Yes.
You know,
We generate a PO and just say, do not deliver or invoice us prior to July 1.
awesome.
But the goal being obviously a September 1st install for those, so that way they're there for the start of the school year. Yeah. I just didn't think that we didn't have any backlog in furniture.
I'm not sure specifically about the chairs. You might be interested in, Roger.
Listening.
I was going to say, we have ordered some chairs for the current year.
We ordered some for the current year for the immediate
Right.
classroom that.
And as far as I know, I don't believe there's any big,
Dangerous chairs.
Yes, we're planning to replace the dangerous chairs. That purchase order was already done, and as soon as we get delivery, hopefully soon, we'll be ready to.
and I'm not aware of any big backlog on the chairs or anything like that, so.
Yeah.
Should have it all by September 1.
And this budget request is to continue the rollout of additional same chairs for other classrooms.
Yeah, we made a plan to cover the next 4 years to get them all changed.
Great.
Mr. Barone at Central Valley.
Thank you, Dr. Hassel. Good evening, everyone. I can now introduce myself as the proud principal at Central Valley Elementary School. And thank you. Like my colleagues, I too am very fortunate to have a dedicated professional staff at Central Valley, and including my assistant principal, Marisol. And I present to you my proposed budget. Well, first, my current enrollment is 386. And piggybacking on what Dr. Hassler shared, the bumps in my lines are attributed to the principal, the field trips, language arts for the inter-reading, and the math, all of that coming back to the building. You'll notice, as a highlight, all of my lines are at a decrease. I followed a zero-based budgeting approach, and I feel very confident with what I am proposing. I'll be able to support and maintain programs at Central Valley. The one area that I'm currently looking at, I know I would like to replace the meeting carpets that are in the classrooms. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to do that for our staff, for our students. Other than that, again, my budget's in front of you, and I am pleased to say that there are decreases in every area with the exception of those few lines that were mentioned previously.
Any questions? No? Thank you.
All right, thank you. And up next, I'm going to invite up Mr. Berger and Mr. McElroy. And up next is Mr. Berger. He'll speak about the middle school budget.
Thank you, Dr. Hassler. Good evening, Board of Education members, Superintendent Norman, and Central administrators. On behalf of the Monroe Woodbury Middle School, I thank you for the opportunity to present our proposed budget for the 25-26 school year. In our request for your consideration, you will see a slight increase in a few lines throughout our budget. One of those lines is our principal lines. In addition to the district-wide increase in field trip line, we are also budgeting for our 8th grade mural. I know that when the visitation committee came by earlier in the school year, it was something that we discussed. If you have not been in the building, we invite you to come check it out because it is now completed and it looks unbelievable. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from our 8th grade students, but our entire community. It's something that we're looking to build on as an annual thing to celebrate our 8th graders. Just a quick synopsis because we are very proud of it. All of the 8th graders were allowed to give some input as to what the mural will look like, objects or things that were in there, and then we had a muralist come in and take all of the input from our 8th graders and design a mural. He came in, he did the outline, and then each of our 8th graders were invited along with staff to go and actually paint part of the mural. We were fortunate that Buildings and Grounds quickly supported putting some spotlights on the mural as well, so it's really popping in the hallways, generating a lot of excitement. So we're looking to continue that and make that an annual tradition. So we're asking to increase our principal lines to support that. Our general supplies lines, slight increase, and that is due to purchasing locks for our students for their lockers. We do give students the opportunity to bring in their own locks from home. Some of them are, they feel very attached to their own personal locks in different colors and things like that. Ours are very bland that we offer. But if you do not have a lock, it is a safety feature that, for safety measures, we do need to make sure that the lockers are locked. So we do purchase a number of locks every year to ensure that for all of our students. We're asking for a slight increase of just under $1,000 for science texts. That is for an online text for our biology students. It is a 6-year subscription, so it's not something that will need to be presented or renewed on an annual basis. We would revisit it again in 6 years. This is the same text that they are using at the high school as well, so it aligns with that. Music lines, we are entering a multi-year phase of proposal to replace some of our musical instruments. This figure that you see of just over $1,900 is to replace one tuba for next year for the middle school. And lastly, we are respectfully asking for an increase in our world language line by $2,000, and that is for our world language department to bring in an assembly for our world language students. These are our core classes that you see in front of you with the dollar figures. And then the following slide is our encore areas with a total of just over 2% increase as our proposed budget for next year.
Any questions?
Questions?
Mr. McElroy.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Like my fellow administrators, I'm grateful on behalf of the high school community to be able to present the requested budget for the 25-26 school year. I'm going to highlight some of the increases and decreases you'll see in the next two slides. Staff development, you'll see in the principal and the conference and meeting lines up a little bit due to increased professional development costs. In the general education fund, you'll see an increase due to, we have two classrooms, stagecraft room behind our auditorium and our tech room in 120 that is in need of cabinetry and shelving in disrepair, not really fixable anymore, so we're looking to upgrade that. Textbook replacement, this is actually a decrease. You'll see in the social studies line, it is down substantially. That is because we were able to cover the 6-year digital text contract with this year's funds, dropping the request for next year. And musical instruments, our musical line is up this year as well due to student needs. We have a few musical instruments requests that you'll see in the lines. This, like the middle school, is our core subject areas, followed by our elective areas, and we overall are down 0.70% overall at the high school this year.
I have one question. When we're seeing, I know furniture is furniture, but when you're building shelves and stuff, I know when we visited the middle school and other buildings, a lot of times our staff is sometimes actually building those units. Is that a potential possibility here, or is this all outsourced material that you're purchasing?
It is a potential opportunity. We just started those conversations. Depending on what happens with the budget, we'll kind of move forward with that, but that is a potential possibility for
Okay.
us.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up is Brian Wilson, our athletic director, to speak about our athletics and PE budget.
Good evening, everybody. Before we get into the proposed budget, I just kind of want to give everyone a snapshot of where we're at right now for the athletic department. So we do have 73 total teams in the district, broken down as you can see. And I also, too, want to put in there the amount of students participating in our programs. So obviously this spring right now, we're currently in the registration stage. So I couldn't give you those numbers right now. We have a week to go before it closes. We're about 650 kids registered so far. I expect that to obviously get close to last year. But as you can see, over the last 3 years, we've had a decent amount of our student athletes participating in athletics. For our budget, our two huge highlights, one kind of is already in play for this upcoming spring is the co-ed varsity clay target team. That is actually in our number of teams that we have right now, so that'll be starting. But that line is in our budget for next year. And also our wrestling team right now is a co-ed team, which we're looking to split into a boys and a girls team. This year was the first year that the New York State had a girls wrestling tournament, so we're looking to join that mission and having two separate teams. So you'll see that line as well to increase our budget for next year. As far as phys ed goes, phys ed we're pretty much on par as what we were with last year.
Any questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, I have Eric Ulau, who's the Director of Elementary Special Education, Karen Jordan, who's the Director of People Personnel Services, and Randy Conley, who is the Director of Secondary Special Education.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. It's an honor to be here to discuss some of the important aspects of our budget and educational priorities. In the coming minutes, we will provide you with an overview of several key areas that we are focusing on in the coming year, including the increases in PPS administration and hospitalization lines, the decreases in the CSE and health services line, as well as the out-of-district tuition, which has been increased by the 27 students.
Thanks.
So the increases in the PPS administration line is due to IEP Direct and Regional Information Center costs being moved to that line, along with Medicaid billing costs increasing. The hospital instruction increase is due to a rise in costs of educating students who are being hospitalized, and we looked at a year-to-year analysis for that. The reductions in both Health Services and Committee on Special Ed were made after an analysis of actual expenditures in 23-24 and a look at how much we've spent so far this year.
To be able to discuss each of the subcategories and why there is either an increase or a decrease, when we take a look at the tuition non-resident lines, those are our students that are parentally placed in private schools within the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District borders, and we bill back. So, for example, if a student attends one of our private schools that's located within our borders from Washingtonville, we bill back to Washingtonville. So we get that reimbursable claim back to us. The tuition resident, when we think about BOCES, every year we have an increase of 3% right off the bat. So we are we currently have projected a very large incoming kindergarten class that requires low ratio classroom structure with high management needs. So we have an increase of 27 students from year to year that will be projected to go out of district. These children, within the bundled amount, it includes the program-related services and if they require aid support. When we think about our resident tuition, those are our students, again, that are going out of district and require more intensive services. Our chapter students, those are our family care home students, or the group home students. We have a decrease for next year because where we previously had 3 additional students, we have 1 student that will currently be a chapter student. And as you can see, we have a 21.55% increase.
The tuition resident line qualifies for all stackable high-cost aid reimbursement from the state and from the federal government.
Correct.
The tuition non-resident line is fully reimbursed, and the chapter student line is also fully reimbursed to the school district.
Correct.
The tuition resident, when you say the stackable aid for the public and for us to know, is that at 100%? Is it at 90%, 70%?
So we have the cost at for the, it's the difference between the cost of the public expense and the cost above the public expense. So it's at 68% above the public expense.
Okay. And this budget number includes the differential?
No.
This is the full dollar amount, and then it's reimbursed
The following
subsequent
year.
After you file the stacking with state ed, you get reimbursed the following school year. So this dollar amount represents the full amount, not the reduced amount.
Okay.
So the money reimbursed should be
The following year.
following year, and that's gonna cover some of that.
Correct. When Patrick presents his budget on revenue, that reimbursement appears on the revenue side for the subsequent year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So each of these budgets compile into one large curriculum and instruction budget. The overall curriculum and instruction budget is broken up into 8 different areas. Core programs, which is K-1, ELA, Math, Science, Social Studies. District programs, which are our various encore programs. PE athletics, special secondary, which is business, student activities, and BOCES occupational ed. Instructional support buildings category is the principal lines, supply lines, conferences and meetings. Education support services is ELA, AIS, and non-public textbooks. Instructional management is the instructional management curriculum development, and then special ed is special ed and PPS. So to give you an idea about the overall size of each of those, special secondary is the largest category. Special education is not included in this because of the size of that. This is the remaining budget lines. Special secondary is the largest component of that because that includes the tuition for BOCES occupational ed. But this gives you the breakdown of all of the ratio of all the other various programs across the entire curriculum and instruction budget. So this represents the overall CNI budget, which includes the various presentations from each of the different buildings. The core programs reflects the Into Reading increase and the math textbook increase, but you'll notice that overall that line hasn't changed much because it's included largely with the various textbook lines. You may notice in the overall district-wide budget, there's a reduction of the district-wide math textbook line, and that reduction is the result of the buildings now budgeting for their math books. So the reduction in the district-wide line is why you saw the increase in each of the various building budgets. So overall, that's not a net increase across the entire budget. The district-wide programs, the increase there includes two main things: the various music items that were spoken about by the buildings, as well as our Family and Consumer Science Department is proposing an update in some of the appliances that are in our FACS classes. PE and physical education is, as Mr. Wilson presented. Special secondary programs is included in the various the various lines, most notably the CTEC line. The reason why I want to bring attention to that is that increase of nearly $200,000 is the result of us currently budgeting for an increase of 10 seats next year in BOCES occupational ed. I've shared with the board in previous years that we've had an incremental increase of about 5 seats. We've seen a pretty significant increase in interest of our students that are participating in that program. So, at this moment in time, we're planning on budgeting for 10 additional seats rather than the 5 additional seats. So that's what that increase is attributed to. The instructional support line is basically the field trip increases that I spoke about. Education support services is AIS, ENL, and textbooks. The increase in that line, in previous years, we have some students that are in out-of-district placements in various programs who get English as a new language services in their out-of-district placement, and that was previously included in the special education budget. However, it's a separate BOCES line that we've created now in the education support services line. That line also qualifies for state aid because it is a BOCES line, and the students receive that service at their BOCES placement. The instructional management line is flat, and the special education line is as reflected when our 3 directors presented.
Any questions? Well done. Thanks, Dr. Hassler, and thank you to the presenters.